welcome to episode 14 of Mythicast. I'm your host, Mike Greenbaum, and as always, Mythicast is brought to you by the Constructed Criticism and Always Improving family. So, coming off a big Mythic championship where Oko stole the show, we're not going to be talking about Oko today. We have another deck we want to talk about. We're going to be talking about the famous Pyka Ponies deck, and no better person to talk about it with than the man himself, Jeff Pyka. So, Jeff is what he describes as a typical Magic grinder, but he has some pretty nice accomplishments to his name. Not least of which is his top 16 finish at GP Richmond just this weekend. But he has numerous GP and SCG top 16s and top 8s, and a Pro Tour Ixalan top 11 finish. So, Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good overall. How about you?
I'm doing great. Recording my podcast, so what could be better? So, Jeff, I first noticed you, I think it was over the summer. I think our paths crossed in a Moto PTQ, actually. And your name looked familiar. Oh. And I don't remember who won. I was playing the Band Scapeshift deck. It was that PT, right when Luis won GP Denver.
Okay, gotcha.
But, I've seen your name pop up in a Discord we're both a part of. And lately, I've just heard people say, Pyka Ponies, Pyka Ponies, Pyka Ponies. And I've been looking into this deck. I've been playing with this deck, and it's great. So, Jeff, we're going to get into that, but, I'm sure, like a lot of our guests, we know people from deck lists and Twitter posts. We don't know a lot about the person behind it. So, Jeff, when did you start playing Magic the Gathering?
So that's a loaded question. I remember distinctly playing at, I was 5 or so. I was Ice Age. I was all the kids in summer camp were playing it, and so, I got my first deck then, played with the big kids, and then, I lost everything. No idea. Picked it up again, the lunchroom tables in 7th, 8th grade, and I started playing a little more seriously freshman year of high school. There was every Wednesday we got a half hour to do whatever we want, they call it an enrichment or something like that. And there was a Magic club for that. So I met some other people that were playing, started going to LGSs more, and I picked it up from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like, everyone that comes on, it's started playing at summer camp, put it down to the middle school cafeteria. But for you, Jeff, you mentioned a little bit about the LGSs. When did you decide that this was more than just a little casual game? This is a game you're going to take seriously and try to become better at. When did that happen for you?
I think, definitely probably sophomore, junior year of high school. I started doing the JSS thing, which... for those who don't know, it used to be you could be on a scholarship. I used that to sell to my father, take me places. Drove around with a couple of friends, one of which I still play with today, or some of which, and just kind of used the JSS scene to then move into the PTQs, and so about 10 years ago or so now.
Okay. And was there a result you got where you qualified for a PT or you got a top 16 somewhere? Was there a certain result where wow, I could, if I put my mind to this, I could be a pretty good Magic player? Or it's just kind of a gradual over time thing?
Oh, so I won my first PTQ my senior year in high school. It was PT Honolulu 2009.
Oh, that's exciting.
Being a 17-year-old kid winning a trip to Hawaii, that was super cool in high school. And
oh yeah.
It was just it was a good fun time. It was the one where it was Shards of Law block constructed. So yeah, that's about all I remember from the actual tournament. But it was played on and off throughout college because college is expensive and you don't have a lot of free time. But it was just one of those things where I think the people just kind of keep you, But I got married a couple months back, and all four of my thank you. All 4 of my groomsmen were people I met through Magic in the past 10 years, and it's just kind of get stuck.
Right. It's I feel like people. It's less about the gathering lately, but that's an important part of the game. So you mentioned that you're married now. You're a little bit older. As the father of a young daughter, I'm sure you have very little time compared to when you were a high school kid and stuff. So how do you balance Magic with the rest of your life now, in terms of job, family commitments? Where do you find time to play Magic, or how do you find time?
So you have a kid, right? Not me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I should phrase, I have a young daughter. Unless Jeff, I don't know, maybe college is wild. But anyways, yeah, I have a young daughter. But, as someone who's married, I'm sure, there are family obligations you have that just didn't exist even 5 or 10 years ago for you. So where does Magic fit in for you? Is it a weekend thing? Is it you have to pick out a few dates a year you can go to travel for GPs? How does that work for you right now?
So I am very lucky in the sense that my wife is very understanding of my love for the game. But I think I've missed 5 out of the last 7 GP Providences, which are 40 minutes from my house, because there's something that comes up roughly around that time. And it's just one of those things where you do need to prioritize things. Magic's great. Magic is my hobby. I play it literally every night. I come in, I play Moto, I play Arena. But at the same time, I don't follow I need to grind every weekend. Just because burnout's very real. And if I don't want to play, I just won't play. I haven't played Modern in I think 5 or 6 months because I hate the format. So if there's a Modern event, I just skip it, and I feel really. It's not I have a select I'll play these 3 events type things, but I play what I enjoy, and that's kind of how I came onto the Jeskai deck in the first place. Kind of segueing back. Is that I really enjoy the combo control style or the tempo combo style decks, and it really fit my playstyle. It was something I enjoy, and I just kept on tuning it because I got the list originally from Martin Druzer's and MPL split, and it's been popping up kind of here or there anyway, and it was just something I was you know what, this is something I enjoy. I am winning a decent amount with it. And we just kind of took that and pushed it through, because if Magic's not fun, then the grind part of being a grinder really starts to bear down on you.
Yeah, and even though Jeff might not like Modern right now, if you're someone out there who likes Modern or Pioneer or any other format, our great sponsors at MTGOtraders.com have all the cards you need to play any sort of Eternal format or Standard on Magic Online. And their sister site, Pure MTGO, is where you could find all of your latest and greatest Magic articles. But Jeff, you mentioned a little bit about Arena. And, this is called the Mythic cast, and you were top dog. You were number 1 for a bit. I saw a show kind of took it from you, but number 1, was this your first time hitting 1 on the ladder?
It was. So this is a thing I wanted. I wanted the screenshot. I just checked right before this. I fell to 6 over the past 5-6 days. Not playing. Yeah. But I was I'm gonna get the screenshot. I won my PTQ for Phoenix 3 or 4 weeks ago, so I had 2 weekends free, and I'm just okay, this is the weekend. I have nothing to do. We're hitting this. And so we did.
And you grinded up basically Halloween rolls around, it's 3 o'clock on the 31st, and you were grinding up as soon as you could on the ladder to try to get there early?
Yeah, I think I started probably the night after Halloween.
Okay.
So November 1st.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so So it was early on the ladder, I know, and I think this might not be a surprise for all of our listeners, but did you face a lot of Oko on your way up, or was it a mix of stuff?
I was actually very surprised on the small amount of Oko I faced on the actual ladder. At GP Richmond, I faced it 6 out of 7 rounds day 1. But the actually grinding up the ladder, maybe comparatively 3 out of every 7 decks were Oko, which is also kind of weird because once even grinding up, I was playing against mostly plats because I think the elo kind of resets a little bit. You keep your elo, but I think you just so I was playing against people that were formerly Mythic. Mm-hmm. I think.
Yeah, I mean everyone's supposed to yeah, plat 4 is what you reset to. So anyone that's plat 4 in those first couple days was either Diamond 1 or Mythic on the last season. Yeah.
But
yeah, and you kept some pretty extensive data, right, when you were tracking your grind up. I know you posted a link to a spreadsheet somewhere. It looked like you lost 1 match because your power went out in your house or something like that.
Yeah, so like, so I think green black event. The reason like I put like, first off, the win rate was like, I think it was 23-5 or something like that. It was like high 80%, mid 80%, I think. And the reason I put that like caveat there was just like to remind myself, like, yeah, like my pal blinked, and I was just like, I'm gonna lose this bye matchup. Green black matchup's great. I'm so upset. So like I had to write that down.
Yeah, of course. Can't short yourself percentage points.
Well, yeah, but yeah, but there's a lot of caveats into my post too, because I knew it was early. I 1-3'd the mocks the same day. And I didn't want my biases to go in to Richmond. Because like I said, I enjoyed the deck. I had a food deck ready just in case I needed it. But I wanted to make sure that I could go into Richmond, give myself the best chances. So again, for disclaimers, like I played 3 LCQs and I lost all 3 of them. But like my comic that I drove down with, one of them, did 5-0 with my 75 and went 5-3-2, I believe, with the deck in the PT. So I do think it's contender. I think it's definitely contender if food gets nerfed. If Oko goes away, yay. If Nissa goes away, I would be super excited. I feel like it's also a very problem card. But yeah.
Yeah. So just to go back to the grind up a little bit, are you someone who hits Mythic every month? Is that kind of goal you set out for yourself in terms of playing on Arena, or do you play just occasionally on Arena and mostly Modo?
So right now, hitting Mythic every month is important, just because like over the summer I let it lapse. I hit Mythic, got the queue, and I was like, oh, it's 3 months till I need to do this again. I fell all the way back down to Bronze 1, and I was like, then grinding back up to Mythic, it was just like a horrible grind. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's not, decay that fall.
Yeah, I think if I never had to play in Gold again, it would be too soon. It's just a slog down there because it's a mix of like good players and people trying out weird decks that are specifically good against, it seems, whatever you're playing. So yeah, for those of you out there listening, if you could hit Mythic every month, it is definitely in your best interest to do it if it's something you're looking to do on a consistent basis and queue for that MCQW. So we talked about how number 1 was a goal for you. You've hit that goal. Are you already qualified for the MCQW? Did you get it last month?
Yeah, I got it last month.
Okay, so right now you're kind of playing with free money. You're going to kind of, I guess, try to maintain that top 10 or 15. Yeah. But if you weren't queued, or in that months maybe when you're not queued, are you someone who camps, or you just play and see where it shakes out at the end?
So when like last month, I wasn't queued. I hit 12th, camped, played like when I saw I was at 24, like I dropped like 10 spaces or so. I started camping at like 5 to 6 days into the month. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty long camp. Won a match, hit back, then camped for another 10 days, won a match, and just kind of camped for the rest, just because like I didn't want to lose the queue. Like
yeah, it's a system we live in for sure. I think for me it was I just played, and the last day I was like 700 with 24 hours to go. I thought I had it, and then I check at 250 and I'm like, oh wow, I don't have it. And I played a best of 1. The coin flip didn't work out for me, so got to get it this month. I'm sitting like at 80 right now, so I feel like I can hopefully maintain that. For some reason I'm playing Boros Knights and having too much success with it. I feel like something's got to come crashing down, but I've been doing the main deck Chance for Glory thing, and that deck is great, but we're not talking about Boros Knights today, Jeff. We're talking about the ponies. So what I'm going to do right now is, for those of you who are listening on our podcast, not watching on YouTube, I'm going to read over the deck list, and we're going to go through some key cards. We're going to talk about some sideboard options, and we're going to talk about the deck moving forward. But right now, Jeff's 75 currently is 3 Bone Crusher Giant, a Kenrith the Return King, 4 Cavalier of Flames, 4 Cavalier of Gales, a Realm Cloak Giant, 2 Brazen Borrowers, 4 Deafening Clarions, 4 Prison Realm, 4 Teferi Time Raveler, 4 Fires of Invention, 2 Sacred Foundry, 4 Castle Vantress, 4 Fabled Passage, 4 Hollowed Fountain, 2 Islands, 2 Mountains, a Plains, 4 Steam Vents, 3 Temple of Epiphany, and 3 Temple of Triumph. And then in our sideboard, we have 3 Aether Gusts, a Time Wipe, 2 Disenchants, 2 Mystical Dispute, 4 Legion Warboss, and 3 Tithe Takers. So, Jeff, I guess we should probably start by talking about Fires of Invention, right? That's kind of the reason this deck is a thing. So, Jeff, what drew you to Fires of Invention? Was it as soon as it was previewed, you said, I want to break this? Did you see... I saw you mentioned Martin Juza was playing it a bit. What drew you to this card specifically?
It was definitely Martin Juza's list. That's the Cavalier. So I am someone who really enjoyed... I have a Sneak Attack deck in Legacy. I really enjoy Cat Combo. I really enjoy Splinter. I like the kind of control the board, one-turn kill you type style decks. And this is like the closest we've gotten standard in a while. And so I wanted to, like I said, I really like the Cavalier Flames. Give it haste, play a file, attack you for 8, 16, whatever. It's fun to me. So.
Yeah. Did you experiment with any other fire shells? I know very early on, I think during that preview event, people were doing like the 5-color and miss it thing. Did you try anything else, or you saw these Jeskai colors and you're like, this is for me?
So I've tried the Planeswalker list. I tried the Fae of Wishes list. I tried the Planeswalker Fae of Wishes list. I tried the Fae of Wishes Cav list. And I kept on... And I tried a bunch of like Shimmels and Drawn to Dreams and stuff like that. And the reason... There's like 6 different ways to build it. And the reason I didn't like the Planeswalker list, it took too slow to kill people. I liked it a little more when I played, it was like Kendrith in Starcon. But at the same time I was playing that, a lot of people were playing Questing Beasts, and it was like the Field of the Dead kind of thing. I haven't revisited that since, but that is because I just kind of really like what Cavalier Flames and Cavalier Gales give you in particular, in which Flames gives you, that one-turn kill, also can Wrath Planeswalkers, which is kind of nice. And Gales gives you, an ability to grind. And what I really like about the deck, I don't see too many people talking about it, is all your Titans replace each other. Like, Sarkhan doesn't replace itself, but Cavalier, you can just discard you're playing 29 lands, you can just like, oh, I have 6 lands in hand, nope, they're gone, I draw gas. You can just brainstorm a bunch. And Kendrith, being also can draw cards and gain life, and just like all your Titans, just gain huge advantages as well. So that's why I really like this particular version.
Okay. And I noticed you mentioned Fae of Wishes, and a lot of the versions I've seen, whether it's on the ladder, I've seen people talking about, have at least 1 Fae of Wishes, sometimes running up to 4. So what about the Fae of Wishes version in particular didn't you like about that Wishboard style Magic?
So, I didn't like Fae of Wishes because even though you can play it as a 1/4, it really that particular version of the deck doesn't interact very easily. Whereas, I think Bone Crush and Giant Brazen Ball actually impact the board early on. You can kill Goose, you can kill the Edgewater Innkeeper, you can kill... and then they both turn around pressure Planeswalkers, which is something Fae of Wishes doesn't do. And then I play 4 Prism pressuring Planeswalkers is pretty important in this format right now. Another reason why I didn't like Fae of Wishes is because, you had granted for Liliana, you had granted for Casuals, and that's kind of it. Those are good cards, don't get me wrong. But I never wanted the rest of the sideboard. So for a while I was playing 1 Fae of Wishes as, a Manamorphose for Liliana type thing. Just, I had access to 1, and then we ended up cutting Liliana for Ugin. And then we were just do we even really want the sideboard Ugin? We ended up cutting it for the main. This all happened kind of at the GP during this kind of week. Mm-hmm. And how we got to the Brazen Ball list. We kind of... So it was me, my friend Sader Cardell, my friend who was also working on the list with me. Our old PT team was Omega Card Games. A bunch of people on it. And on the files list, and we kept on debating over Shimmer possibilities. We played for a while. I liked it. to an extent. And the same thing with Drawn for Dreams. I liked it when I ever had files, but like over a bunch of times playing, like I would have files in play. I would like scry and I'd bottom the Shimmel. And like, if you're bottoming your cantrip rate in the game, it's kind of like a bad sign because like you need to spend all your mana not spend your mana, but you need to have your play 2 impactful cards every turn with files because you're kind of trapped. You just need to do that because like you need to interact with the board before this, just so you don't fall too far behind. So like if I ever cast Drawn from Dreams on turn 4, I just lost the game. Like you just don't have that kind of time. You need to develop, I guess, traction is the best way to phrase it, on the board. And that's kind of why we moved to 4 Prism Realms, because like you can be on the draw and shock the goose. Like they play turn 2 Oko, you can still like stomp the goose. They generally don't do anything really on 3 mana if they already have the Oko in play. So you take 3 damage off the food token. They might play a Druid. Then you can like Prism Realm and Clarion Wrath everything up, and you're not like super far behind. Sometimes they still go like turn 2 Oko, turn 4 Nissa, turn 5 Crazy, and sure like, well, okay, cool. And that happens. Yeah. But lucky, the good thing is like, at least with the Cav version, even in that draw, you can still go like Cavalier Gales, Cavalier Flames, and kill both your Planeswalkers. And even if something trades with the Graces, the Cavalier Dice Trigger does some damage.
Yeah. Yeah, and generally, killing the Planeswalkers from the Oko deck is usually a good sign that you're on your way to hopefully swinging the match. So one card I saw that started popping up in lists was Sphinx of Foresight. Did you and your testing buddies ever consider it? Have you tried it since you've seen it? Or is that one of those things you say, I'm glad someone had success with this, it's not for me?
So that's something I really do like the thought about. Like, it checks all the boxes. Like, it gives you some... a nice early game like filtering. It impacts the board. I like the idea of it. I'm definitely excited to try it, but it was completely a left field. I'm like, that's a card. Like,
yeah. I saw it in lists too, and I was confused. But then when you think about it, like you said, it kind of checks all the boxes. So when we talk about sideboarding, I feel like in this format, the first question I have to ask is, are you pre-boarded for Oko, or do you respect enough of the field where you're not pre-boarded?
So, I am not pre-boarded for Oko. And it's... I don't know if that bit me. Like, I did play against food a lot. All 3 of my losses were to food. But a good chunk of my wins were to food as well. The reason why I'm not pre-boarded is I just, call me old school, I really hate having dead cards in my main. And the Brazen Bowls and the Giants, the Prison Realms, those are all concessions to that food exists. But all of them are modal cards, which allows you just like to have the same kind of impact, like that Aether Gust would have for the most part. And that's really like the card. Like Brazen Balls would get cut for Aether Gust. Like that's what it is. And I don't know. I really just liked having Aether Gust. Having Brazen Ball as a 3/1 flyer. So I don't know if it's a good, like, I'm not confident enough to say this is correct not to play Aether Gust main. But I really liked being just super linear game 1, and just having the extra, 6 power flyer when I tap my mana for Cavalier Flames. So
yeah, it's totally fair, totally reasonable. Now I know this is anecdotal, but was there a situation at all during the GP where you were looking down, like, if I just had that game 1 Aether Gust, this would have swung it? Or again, it's just an exercise of futility, but I'm curious if that crossed your mind at all during the tournament.
So I actually won way more game 1s than. Like that's the kind of the thing. Like I'm supposed to win game 1.
Yeah.
They don't interact with files. For the most, that's another reason why I didn't play too many. Didn't want to play the Gust because, if you're hyperlinear, you should win game 1. Like I saw one of my friends was playing the deck. Just keep. I thought the hand was awful. It was just like Cavalier Gales, Cavalier Flames, Files, and 4 lands. He was on the play. He was like that's awful. What? You just don't do anything. He goes like, it doesn't matter. Just they can't deal with it. They die. I'm like, I guess. But and he won the game.
Yeah.
He didn't deal with it. They died. So, but
yeah, but no, I get what you mean in the sense that on game 1, you know your role. You know that the Aether Gust is not necessarily what you mean. Before we go to the sideboard, I always like to talk about the mana base. I forgot to mention it. Anything you changed from the mana base? Did it work for you? Did you ever feel like you were missing colors? Not anything you changed going forward?
There was a lot of considerations actually in this mana base. And looking at it, like, what do you mean? So first off, we're playing 29 lands. And so we were debating like, do we cut a castle for just being 28? We'll play can we use some shimmels? We saw that Sam Black cut like a Sacred Foundry and a castle to play, and he was playing 4 shimmels and 3 drawns. And the reason how we got to I played so much 28. I've tried siding out some lands, and I'm actually kind of at the point right now. It's like 29 lands, never side anything out. The reason for that is when you don't hit your 4th land drop, you literally have no chance whatsoever. One of the games I lost the last round of the GP was just like, okay, I have 4 lands in hand. It's 4 lands in play. I have 2 Cavaliers in hand. Draw cav, just die. Like, and you're playing 7, 8 cards 10 cards that are 5 drops and tile, and you just need to hit your land drop every turn. So the other thing that we were considering is how many Temple of Triumphs do we play? And we were discussing like, do we want like Gideon Blackblade instead of Legion Warboss? If we're playing that, then we're playing Temple of Triumphs and at a higher number. We cut the Justice Strike, so we're able to add the other Temple of Epiphany. His previous version of the list, we're playing 4 Temple of Triumphs, and 2 Temple of Epiphanies. I mean, like we actually went like back and forth a lot, and like the castles are very important to use your Files mana. And even though like it looks like just like threw it together, it was actually more thought than I think I've ever given a mana base before.
Okay. And you're happy with how it turned out? During the GP, you were pretty happy with it? That's awesome. You know, I think that's definitely probably the most underrated amongst players that aren't as seasoned. Maybe the mana base is kind of, you know, you'll pull a list, you'll net deck something, you'll make a few changes, and then you won't consider changing the mana at all, not realizing how the colors might impact things, or now your Scry lands, maybe you want to play a more aggressive game. So I think talking about mana base is always something that's good for our listeners to hear.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of that as well.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
sure.
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, I've had these lands saved up for 3 weeks now. Like, might change them. Like. Yeah,
no, exactly. And I definitely think it's probably losing points, but at the same time, it's it's one of those things that's easy to overlook. So, talk about your sideboard. I know when we first was talking about doing this podcast, you're like, I don't know, I'm pretty loose when it comes to sideboarding. So, is this the sideboard you played in the GP, or are there some changes here?
This is the sideboard I played in the GP, and we changed this a lot the night before.
Okay.
So Autumn Bouchette wrote an article on Star City Games about Jeskai Fires, and I saw that they had the Tith Taker, and I'm like, that's super interesting. It's pretty narrow, but it's exactly what I want to do. I always wanted to have that transformational creature sideboard. It's like my favorite thing in Magic. So I was like, on Friday I'm like walking around just boarding people since I'm queued for the next PT. I lost my OCQs. Literally had nothing to do. So just watching a bunch of Magic, and I went to the vendor, bought 3 of them. Like, we'll think about it, and absolutely loved them. Especially the kind of like also had like small applications against like the cat deck, but like that's kind of because like you really can't really outgrind that deck sometimes. So like when I played it again, I only played against it once, so I wasn't really sure if this is correct. But like on the draw, I won game 1. On the draw, I sided out like a good amount of things, played the control deck and got crushed. And I was like, well, that didn't work. He just beat me going long. So I just like sided in the war bosses, sided in the Tith Tackles, and was like, let's try it. And it actually worked wonderfully because he sided out his Wicked Wolves. That was something I noticed. Like he didn't have Wicked Wolf game 2. The game went pretty long, so I just assumed he just didn't have him in. So I was like, okay, if he is boarding out the creatures, I am going to board in mine. And that's just something I kind of got cognitive about. But another problem I was having is I felt like I was overboarding against Soul Typhoon. And so before I had like 3 Aether Ghosts, 2 Time Wipes, 3 Mythical Disputes. And I was just like trimming a bunch of cards, and always like would draw a Mystical Dispute later on. Because I kind of really needed to get Oko turn 2 on the draw. I gotta have them, and then like I just lose when they have Nissa and 11 lands, and just like, okay, cool. So I cut a bunch of food cards for my sideboard for the Tith Tackles, just so I would stop overboarding. I would just board in the 3 Gusts and a Mystical Dispute, take out 2 Prison Realms, 2 Tefris, because they board in Brontodons anyway. So sometimes you just can't have your like, the other games I was losing, I was just like, Prison Realm, your Oko, they would Vraska, kill my Prison Realm, and I'm just like, nice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually want to go back to something you said, because I noticed did you watch the final? Did you get a chance to watch the final of the Mythic Championship between Paolo and Andre?
I watched game 5.
Okay.
That's about it.
All right. So one of the things that Paolo did was he noticed that Andre boarded out his Wicked Wolves, and he brought in his Questing Beast in one of the sideboard games. And I think that's something that a lot of people, myself included, sometimes don't do. We don't necessarily think about how our opponent is sideboarding and then reactively sideboarding game 3. Is that something that you had to consciously think about? How do you sideboard in terms of games 2 to 3? Because I think a lot of people, the sideboard guide says this, I'm doing this games 2, I'm doing game 3. How do you think about sideboarding between game 2 and 3? I think that's something that some people don't think about as much.
So with Teferi, in particular, definitely changes play to draw. The number of Teferis I bring in, keep out type thing. It also depends a lot on the deck. If I'm very comfortable, I'll change it up a lot of things. In this GP in particular, because I had the 9-card package, usually I would board in like 4 War Bosses, 3 Test Tackles, 2 Mystical Disputes. A lot of times in this GP, I would just shuffle my deck in my sideboard together, pull out the cards to like kind of mask that fact, both in game 2 and game 3. Which is something I normally don't do. Like if I wasn't bringing them in, I would just like take out my 4 Gusts, take out my thing, or whatever, just leave them on the table and pull it out. But I was making a very conscious effort to mask what I was doing, because it was like such a different change. Mm-hmm. But that being said, like sometimes I would board, like I played against the cat deck again. Like sometimes I would not board in Legion Warboss on the draw against certain decks. I think I played against like Blue Red Flash randomly, and like so on the draw I'm like, do I really want this Legion Warboss just because they have the stomp, and like they have like it's good enough, like it's better, it might be better than having like my Prison Realms, but like is it really what I want? And I think when you have these high impact cards that are way better on the play, you have to kind of like measure that. Like sort of like Teferi and Warboss in particular. Okay,
yeah, awesome. I think it was Marshall calling the game. When he mentioned that, it's just one of those things where you think about, oh yeah, like that's such a heads up play. That's why he's playing in the finals of a Mythic Championship, and I'm sitting on my couch and watching it. So when it comes to this deck, and really any deck in the format, I feel like right now, if you're not happy to see Oko across the table, it's probably a mistake to be playing it. Would you say that's a fair assessment at this point?
Yes.
And kind of like that on the same vein. So when you sit down, unknown opponent, game 1, are you hoping to see them playing Oko? Is that kind of what you're banking on? So you're not. So if the answer is no, right? If the answer is no, the question, of course, is then why are you playing a deck when you said you faced almost entirely Oko decks. So why would you play a deck if you're not happy to face Oko on the other side?
So it's actually kind of interesting in the sense that, like, I'd rather see almost any other deck across the table because all those matchups are great. Whereas, like, the Oko matchup is, I think I'm like a 45. I would say, like, if I win the die roll, I can usually win the match. That's not where you want to be. But I won a lot of die rolls, so that was great.
That's skill and matchup to have.
But again, like, it's not really I'm upset to see Oko across the table. But I wish I would just like see anything else, because like if they go like the only really like draws you lose to is like the turn 2 Oko or like turn 3 Nissa draws, and they don't attack you with the Paradise Druid because it's a small type thing. But like you're very well equipped to win the long game if as long as you don't draw too many crisis, and they don't just bail you in cards. But like I guess win the mid game is like the best way to describe that. So like the deck's very beatable. I would be crazy to consider you a favorite, but like I much rather like see anyone play like Edgewall Innkeeper, and like because like I feel like those matchups are actively like fantastic.
The deck where everything dies to Deafening Clarion, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Or like even like Team of Whack, like you'll lose every game one against Team of Whack, but at the same time, like if you can resolve a Teferi and plus it up, just like plus it up every turn, they have a very hard time dealing that and winning. You can gain enough advantages to push through and steal that game. Same thing with Blue White, like that it's another matchup that's pretty winnable, especially like after sideboarding. The Tith Takers were fantastic when I played against like Team of Whack or like Blue Green Flash and stuff like that. So it's like, again, like I'm never. It's like I said, it's weird. Like I'm never happy to see Oko, but like that's only because everything else is like excellent.
That's fair. So would you say that this deck against the field gives you a better shot than the Oko deck against the field, and then when you play, you accept the Oko matchup as it is what it is?
That's what I told myself.
Okay.
Whether or not, because again, I never actually played the food deck. I don't know how that is against the field. I know people are gunning for it. I know like against the cat matchup randomly, the Sote cat deck randomly came up. That matchup felt way better for us than normal food. But I'm sure it's really hard for normal food to win. So like things like that, and people are gunning for you, just kind of sidestep that. So I like where it is, and I think like I can't stress this enough. I enjoy the playstyle of the deck, and I think that's very important in Magic. So
yeah, and I think on our episode a couple of weeks back, I was talking with Kanye Best about a similar thing about how one of the most important things in Magic is expressing yourself, and when formats essentially become a one deck format, that's sometimes restricting. So I think that's a good way to transition into talking a little bit about Oko, because I think on any podcast talking about Standard, I don't know if there are any left besides me at this point. We're not going to become a pioneer podcast for our listeners, don't worry, like some other things are. But when it comes to talking about Oko, Oko is oppressive. It's been dominating, but it was both decks in the final. It was most of the top 8 at the PT or the MC, whatever you want to call it. So when it comes to Oko, right, I think a lot of people are assuming that next Monday it's going to get banned, but also a lot of people are saying, will it even matter? So what are your thoughts on the Oko deck sans Oko? Right, so you still have Goose, Druid, turn 3 Nissa. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that still the best deck in the format?
I think our matchup becomes like judging the personal biases. I don't know how to say it without. I think it becomes way more attackable. You can carry on, for example, with everything. You can play Shock again. Like
Shock. That's still, that's a card. That's still a card in the format.
Like you can't play it now because you're still getting attacked on turn 2 with 3/3 or what have you. And you can. I think the incidental life gain being removed as well And like the free food for Wicked Wolves and stuff just allows aggressive decks to come back in. So like you're gonna see like Clarion get way better. 23 Nissa is obviously very good, but like you can delay that a lot easier. So I think they'll still have the late game Nissa Crisis packages, and I think that's very good. But I think the deck, if it loses Oko in particular, and just Oko, can still very much function as a deck and will be mostly fine. However, if they like actually just gut it, like an energy style, like just we're just going every card with food is banned type, thing, then obviously it's a completely different format.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of futile to speculate on anything more than Oko, if 2 or 3 cards. But, as this podcast is coming out on November 13th, and I'd like people to be able to listen to it for more than a few days, let's assume Oko is the only card banned. You say Shock is something you'd be strongly interested in?
Yeah, for the most part, because like I would feel like if there is I would not play it in this deck because I love Bone Crusher Giant. I just love having the additional body. But like I meant like Shock style decks, like maybe Ghoul, Rakdos Sacrifice, Mono Red type things. Because like I would imagine that they would be like the ramp decks would replace Oko. I think like Incubation Druid is an option. Maybe Leaf Clown Druid, or like put like Risen Reef in the deck. Like, obviously Shock's not great there, but like I would maybe assume a pivot into like maybe even the quasi duplicate elemental style type, like ramp. They play in this Crisis and all that fun stuff as well. Mass manipulation styles type things. So like I think that is going to be a very, very viable archetype again. But I also think that like the aggressive decks might actually be able to do things because Wicked Wolf is going to be a little more food starved than it was previously. And I think that was like that combo of like get a bunch of life and then you just have a indestructible thing that fights your guys every turn. Like it just such a on defense level. Just
as someone who is forcing Boros Knights, I am all too aware of the Wicked Wolf just being a problem. But I think, if Oko goes, the format will become a little bit more open, and it'll be interesting to see if, there's Fires decks, see what aggro decks, and of course, as new decks come in, other decks become less viable, more viable. Will Esper Dance come back? We don't truly know, but I'm very excited to see what happens. So, Jeff, let's say it's a week from now. What are you thinking? What is the ban and restricted announcement we're going to see on the 18th?
I think Wizards likes money a little too much. I don't think they're going to ban anything from Thrones. I'm thinking Nissa Crisis is the 1-2 punch that's going to get removed. Yeah, but
with Veil being banned in Pioneer, is that foreshadowing something or no?
I would jump for joy.
You don't like green having the best counterspell in the format? That's not something you're interested in?
I mean, I like it in the sense that like people are not casually avoiding me and see less rapid. Like I like what it being in the format does to the format as a whole type thing, but I don't. Yeah, I think that card should just get like removed from the game.
pretend it never happened. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it was Jeff Hoagland mentioned that Wizards has never banned a Mythic rare when it's the most like recent set to come out, or until it's very close to the release of the next set. And he speculated it would be closer to January if we saw Oko go. So I'm very interested to see what that deck looks like. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, so like I think he put too many qualifiers on this. I think the last Mythic rare to ban was Jason. It was 3 months before rotation. Yeah. Because like there has been very problematic Mythic rares recently. Like Hazard, Gideon, very problematic. They won't ban unless Aetherworks Marvel was a Mythic. I'm just like misremembering. Like Emrakul probably was a Mythic. So like, I think he might be a little more right than I thought he was. I just kind of misremembered that.
Yeah, I could also be misremembering what he said for sure. But I think kind of the moral is Wizards does not like banning Mythic rares, the chase cards in the set, because Hasbro's a company. Hasbro has stockholders that don't know what Magic the Gathering is for the most part. They like to see their stock go up. So I think you might be right. The more I've been thinking about it as our guests have come on, I think Oko might be Baroko for a little bit longer in our standard format. But people have adapted. You've adapted. People are building all sorts of weird stuff. If nothing else, Croquis plays Magic for 12 hours a day. He always is coming up with cool stuff. So I think someone might be able to figure out something to hopefully be a little bit more competitive. And like you said, if Nissa goes, if Krasis goes, that deck does become significantly more different and neutered a little bit.
Well, I think my favorite part about those two cards going is you lose your super late game advantage, because now you just have an early deck, you can pressure, and if you just how you would have to play Brazen Balls and have to completely adjust to actually close the game out instead of being I'm just gonna draw 14 cards and everything you've done recently is just gone.
Yeah.
So
I think we've all been on the other end of that. As long as they don't top deck Krasis, I lost. Yeah. All right. Well, Jeff, this has been a blast. As we're winding down here, I appreciate you coming on here. So where can people find you if they want to see more of your thoughts? Do you have a Twitter profile? Do you stream? Where do you post? What do you do on social media or otherwise?
So I do have a Twitter. It's PykaPow9001. My friend actually made it for me a while back. I just refused, and he was just like, "Okay, here you go." Yeah. So that happened.
And if you want to see Jeff's #1 screenshot at the top of the Mythic ladder, that's where you can find it.
Yeah, that's about it. I don't make content. It's something I want to get into, but I work a full-time job, and I do have to spend some time with my wife occasionally.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you got to fit that in for sure. All right, well, Jeff, just thank you again. And as a reminder to everyone, no matter where you're watching or listening, we can be found on YouTube and all of the major podcast platforms, Overcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, there's a good chance we're on it. Of course, we are part of the Constructed Criticism, Always Improving family of podcasts. And that's about it. Next week, we're going to be talking with Dylan Lurch. He made it to day 2 of the MC, was in the featured drafting pod and beat Christian Houck on stream. And he managed to wheel an Outlaws Merriment in draft at the PT. So I think that alone warrants an appearance on this show. Jeff, thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, you have a great day, and we'll see you next week.